Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Intentional Man, our devotional we're doing. I'm Michael Chestnut. This is my co-host, Dwayne Hall. We're missing one today, but that's okay. Life goes on. We got a lot of people. We all have busyness going on in our life, and so
Oh, yeah.
uh, Jamie wasn't able to meet with us today, but that's okay. So we're going to go on um, today with it. We are on chapter 4, Dwayne. Uh, Thinking smart. This is one of my favorite, actually one of my favorite topics to talk about. When I was in the prison, I had a whole lesson that was on thinking smart. With it, and
Yeah.
I think one of the as men we could probably resonate that we don't always think smart. uh,
Yeah.
it, thank God for my wife because she has saved me so many times because she's the more organized person in the group. She's the one that's more keeps things together a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
But goals are quite important in um in your life and being intentional in this,
Mhm.
And when I wrote this devotion to it, I put down, I dealt with only 8 topics. We could have went with so many more, but I wanted to deal with a lot of the 8 topics that helped me in my restoration and in becoming intentional in that. And to be honest, one of them was goal setting. I'm a lazy man. It's easy for me at the end of the day of a work day to come home. Once you hit that recliner or that chair, your chair, it's like cement is
Yep.
falling on
You're just
you, and it's
done.
hard. You're done. You're
Yep.
done for the day, right? And so I like to plan out everything so that I'm good because we hit it on a couple topics. You said it. It's not just your addiction and stuff. Sometimes work and to balance out your home life and everything, you have to be intentional in that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm the same way because it'd be easy to get into my work, all the podcasts, the writing I'm doing, and things like that, and not have time for the people who are most important in my life. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
so
And, it's as I was looking over the devotional, the breakdown of SMART, in business, if you go to a bank to borrow money to start a business, first thing you ask for is a business plan.
yes,
It's point A to point B, and we do that in our life in certain aspects, but not necessarily where we need to, in our
yeah,
personal life.
yeah,
We're not
and
as intentional in that.
we aren't, and without goals, we have no direction, right?
Right.
So you can end up floundering anywhere. And I'm not saying you have to, man, I know some people who their whole day, and God bless them because that's how they're wired.
Mhm.
They've got a list for everything in their day and how they do that. I have
Yeah.
gotten better over the years. My wife is a list person. But I have gotten better over the years, and now I have agendas for my day of things I wanted to check off and make sure are accomplished because these are things that have to be done. And
Right.
I'm sure that in your business world, you're kind of the same way. There's certain things that
Oh, yeah.
especially when you're learning something new. In order for you not to miss it, you want to make sure you got it down.
Right. Yeah.
And I just went to
And
the
and
doctor.
prioritize all of it, you know?
Exactly.
Importance down to desire. You know
Yep.
I would like to eat, uh, a bunch of cake at the end of the day, but that is not priority, so
Correct.
you have to you have to prioritize that thing down, get done what you have to, and then get into the want tos.
Yep. And
So,
that's the biggest struggle is, knowing you have to decipher what are wants and what are needs.
Mhm.
you know, and needs, you have to and like you said, prioritize all that. So I kind of want to get into this, what SMART goals are. It's an acronym, SMART. A lot of people already know this, because it's in a lot of books, it's in a lot of education, and it's really good because goals help you, especially when you're trying something new. Like right now, you're reading this devotional and you're trying to find new ways to be intentional in it. Well, in order to do that, we got to write some goals out. But the problem is, a lot of times we write stupid goals. Sometimes our goals, we're writing goals for ourselves, and guess what? There's a reason why they're not working. And I don't know
Right.
who came up with this acronym, but it's a great acronym. And we're going to start with S. S is for specific. Your goal should be specific in mind. When I worked at the prison, we would do a goal sheet with them about what are you. I worked with inmates before they got out of prison, and what is your goal? Well, my goal is to be a good man. Okay, well, that's good.
How
Well, what
how
does that
how
mean? Well,
exactly. Yeah.
and what's a good man? That's vague. You
Yep.
can't be vague in your goals,
Yep.
because if you're vague in your goals, then you're vague in your results, you
Yep.
know. So you need to be very specific in them, you know. Um and it might be, I'm going to be, my specific goal today is to accomplish the tasks at hand. What are those tasks? Write those tasks down, you know. Um my goal is to be a good husband, right? Well,
How?
yeah. What is a good husband? You know?
Yep.
So I know for like my wife, it's spending quality time with her, time with just her. Well, that's specific. Okay. So now I can write down, let's start, how can I do that? Or it could be, it's like doing these podcasts. We've had to write things out. Each thing has been very specific in nature of what we're
Right.
going to discuss. The second thing, because if you're not specific, it's going to be vague, and and you're going to get lost in that a little bit. The second is M, is for measurable. Okay, if you have a goal, it needs to be measurable. How are you doing? You got a starting point and you got an ending point, and can you see progress in what you're doing with that? Because
Right.
that, you don't want to stay at ground one the whole time. So it's got to be measurable to where you're going to be. But the most that is achievable. Is it achievable? A lot of times the problem is we're setting up goals for ourselves that are not achievable. So we're already set up for failure. And nothing worse than I think where a lot of people get discouraged is they write a lot of these goals out, but then they're, I mean, I never can complete it. I can never do this because
Right.
it's not achievable. Your goal is not achievable for you, you
Yep.
know, which takes me to, and this is my favorite one, Dwayne, realistic. R is for realistic. We're not realistic. I was trying to find this clip on American Idol and I couldn't find it. It was during one of the first seasons of American Idol. And I got to tell you, when I watched I could care less who wins in American Idol. When American Idol would come on, I just wanted to watch
I wanted to
the
watch the
first
bad
part.
singers.
Yes, I love the audition the most. And there was this girl came on one time, and Dwayne, she was so beautiful. She was so beautiful, and she was a Southern belle, had that. My wife's a Southern belle. I'm a sucker for a Southern belle. She came on, and you could see Simon Cowell, and what was the other guy's name?
Randy Jackson.
Randy
Was it
Jackson.
back when Randy was
And
on it?
yes, and I mean, this is when, who was the girl that started with them? She's famous, whatever her name was.
Oh, Paula?
Yeah,
Paula Abdul? Yeah.
Yes, and she was looking at these guys like this because they were, like, already ready to send her to Hollywood because she had the
She had the
look,
look. Yeah.
and she talked to them in that Southern accent, and Simon Cowell said, "Well, honey, why are you here?" She said, "I believe I'm gonna be the next American Idol." And he said him and Randy looked at it and said, "We think you might be right," because when you looked at her, she had it.
Yeah.
Dwayne, when she opened her mouth, it was like fingernails on a chalkboard. It was horrific. It
Yeah.
was terrible, and you can see these guys, they start laughing, and you know what cracks me up are these people that in an audition, and you see that they're laughing. That's not a good sign that the audition's going good, right?
Exactly.
And so Simon Cowell stops her. He's like, "No, stop, 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 stop." And he looked at her and he said, "Honey," because he liked her. He liked her. He's like, "Honey, who told you you could sing?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "My mama."
Mm.
And I'll never forget. Simon Cowell looked at her and he said, "Honey, your mama lied to you." Now, all of a sudden, this beautiful Southern belle turned into the exorcist.
Yeah.
She did everything but levitate. She goes, "My mama don't lie." And before security could get her, she gets Simon Cowell's water and throws it in his face. And then she storms off, going, "You're making a big mistake. You're going to see,
I
I'm going to be a star." Well,
Yeah.
like for the next 5 years, when American Idol would start, they would promo that girl. I'm like, "Yeah, you became a star,
Yeah.
but not for the right
Yeah.
reasons?" And the
Exactly.
truth is there's a lot of people out there, they think they're singers.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah,
Mama
it's
will lie to you,
it and I know I keep coming back to business, but that's the world I live in.
right?
When I began the process of starting my own company, everybody thought I was crazy. I had never owned any business before. I had always worked for someone else or either pastored churches.
Right.
And I just looked at my wife one day and I said, if you will hang in there and give me 1 year, I will make this business start
Mhm.
and work.
Yep.
And a lot of people thought it was an unrealistic deal, but I knew it was realistic. It was outside of it. It was a stretch, but
Right.
the biggest stretch was how to get the money
Mhm.
to do this. And through a process and everything, it all started working out. But when I look at this specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, it and I didn't know this at that time.
Mhm.
I've read it in the past, but it wasn't
Right.
on the forethought of my mind. But I set a specific goal. I'm going
Right.
to achieve this. Uh,
Mhm.
it was measurable. It was
Yep.
progress every day. I had to get up. I had to put my big boy pants on. I had to go out.
Yep.
I had to do what had to be done. Was it achievable? I knew it would be.
Yes.
Um, was it realistic? Yes, I had already done it before. And was it timely? Well, I set a time frame, and I said this will be done within a year. And so, this is as you said, this is your favorite topic, in the devotional and all, and it really is for me too because even unknowingly, I use this pattern
Yes.
exactly. I mean, in the same order and everything, and it does work. And I know not everybody's starting a business, but
Right.
in anything in your life, you have to do this.
Yes.
The old saying is, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time.
Yes, exactly.
And so, if your goal is nothing, shoot at nothing, but then you can't blame anybody but yourself for your failures because there's not going to be success.
Correct.
There just isn't. Without goals, you're not going to succeed. You can be
No,
mediocre. You
correct.
can just sustain life as it is, and if you're happy with that, you're probably not watching this podcast. But,
Yeah.
but
Well,
but the goals are everything in life. And, a lot of people have said, and I know my father has said this, that, we are to learn every day. The day we quit learning is the day that we'll probably be leaving this earth.
correct. Correct.
So,
And if you want to be successful, you got to have a game plan. You
hmm
know, for me, when I said, you know, I picked that word intentional and decided to make that for my life. I had to get this out, and I literally use this all the time because it's a good guideline, right, for it. And I find myself it on some of these things, I have to ask questions because you know why? I'm asking something because and this is really important. I think you gotta surround yourself with good people, right? People, though, who will
absolutely.
be honest with you and tell you the truth, right? Because
Yep.
I want someone to be honest with me and tell me, "Is this really achievable and realistic, what I'm doing?"
Mhm.
So, I just met with my pastor yesterday about this ministry that we've started and what's going on, and I went through this with him, because I wanted to know, am I thinking right? Is this realistic in nature? Because, you know, I can go to my mama, and guess what? The problem with going to mom is
You
mom loves
you can
you.
sing.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
thinks you got the voice of an angel, where the rest of the world is like, "You sound like dogs. You
Yeah.
bark it," you know? Because
That's why God gave us daddies too.
isn't that the truth,
At
you
least
know?
in my life.
Well, but, a daddy, his little girl can't do no wrong,
Yeah, exactly,
you
exactly.
know? And so these things are so important. And these are things, me and Dwayne, we talked before the podcast, we talked after. Me and him are going to be talking this week because there's some avenues that are going around, and I want Dwayne is one of those people for me because as I look at this, okay, Dwayne, this is my vision. I'm being specific in what's going on, but I want to dissect it with a friend who I know is going to be honest with me.
Yeah,
I may not like everything that he tells me, but you know what I know? I trust Dwayne. I know Dwayne's gonna be honest with me, and he's gonna tell me the truth as he knows it to be the truth. And
yeah,
as we look at that, we might be able to dissect some stuff to make that now more realistic and achievable
yeah,
because he's got some knowledge that I may not have, you know? And as I'm starting this ministry, Dwayne started a business. They're almost similar in what's being done,
right,
and I want to pick his brain on that, and that's okay. That's what friendships are about. And you hit
exactly.
the timely one. There should be a starting point and an ending point to these
Yeah.
goals. If you don't have that,
And in that, the important thing is we have to remember we can't rest on our laurels. I've
no,
achieved my goal. What is the next goal? In our personal life, uh, say I want to be a better husband. All right.
right,
What does that require? More time with my wife.
right,
All right. I spend an hour with my wife every night. Uh, no other interaction, just her, phones off, everything. All right, I've achieved that. What's the next step? Is it just
that's
to
right.
still
Well,
be a good husband, or is it to be a great husband?
right, and
You
I
know,
think you're hitting a good point because what will happen is if you say, "Okay, I want to be a good husband," you're going to find out. So you have long-term goals and you have short-term goals,
exactly.
right? And
Yep.
sometimes my long-term goals, what it will have is a bunch of sub goals underneath it. To
Yep.
reach that long-term goal, I'm going to have a bunch of short-term goals to get that. Because if I want to be a good husband, let's just go with that. I have to understand what my wife needs. not what I think she needs.
right.
Because what I think she needs,
Flowers are great in the beginning, but you can only
but
give so many flowers until that becomes mundane.
well, and let's be
You
honest
know,
too with that. Not everybody likes. My wife doesn't like flowers.
mine doesn't. Mine would rather get a rose bush instead of roses.
Yes, exactly. That's my
That's
wife too.
how my wife is. You
Yeah,
know, she would rather me go and plant her an apple tree than bring her a box of chocolate.
yep. My
You know,
wife,
that
my wife would prefer me to um, plan a memory with her, do
yes,
something
mine is the
that
same way. Yeah,
and so
yep,
knowing that, then now see, we became specific.
exactly.
Now we can start figuring out what that
And
might be like. All I need to do, we got this 3-day weekend coming up. I'm going to get a bed and breakfast for her. Is that is that specific enough? Yes. Is it measurable? Yes, because you know I we can start the process of what are the things I need to get done to get that. I need to make a reservation. I've got to do this. So it's achievable, realistic, and
yeah.
it's got a start and end time to it. And it
Let
goes
me
with everything else.
one important thing, and this is completely off subject somewhat, but it goes along with the overall intentional. You know, we've said week in and week out, it is important to surround yourself with godly men for
Yes.
accountability and all. And a lot of people may miss this, but you know that little banter that we had back and forth about rose bushes, apple trees, time at the a bed and breakfast. See, that's what proves that wasn't rehearsed. That wasn't
No.
scripted. That's what
No.
proves if you align yourself with someone of a like mind, that you challenge each other, iron sharpening iron, that you can navigate life through it. You
Yep.
know, in a 15 seconds of this 22 minutes that we've been talking, we became very intentional and very direct and timely and everything just by having a quick conversation and bouncing
Mm,
stuff off of each other. It
yep.
proves the whole thing. If anybody has doubted the purpose of this devotional and this book and being intentional, that disproves their doubt right there.
Yep. You
Because
got to
it
trust the process.
yes, and you have to surround yourself with someone that is challenging yet of the same mindset. Very important.
Exactly.
Very, very
It,
important.
and it is, and that's what this devotional is about. It is about building a relationship with other men. That
Yes.
because that we want you to do this with other men, and that's why we're trying to model it here because iron sharpens iron, and a, me and Dwayne don't even live in the same state. You know, we don't even
No.
live in the same state. You don't have to.
No.
For him to be one of my best friends, that's not required. All that's required is communication. You know,
Yeah.
and we will text
Yep.
each other throughout the week on different stuff. You know, I'm truly a product, and understand this. Relationships, good relationships can change lives.
Definitely.
Having good
Definitely.
relationships in your life can be a game changer. Dwayne, let's look at the 3 questions though, so
Yep.
we'll close out this. Um, one of the first question we want you guys to look at and talk together is what can you do in your daily life that sharpens your mind? Okay. And uh, one of those we gave examples in the book. But we're not all the same people. We don't like the same things, right?
Right.
And one thing me and you've discussed, we're not big readers. I'm a reader now. But I've had to force myself to read. You know, sometimes it's an audible book. Sometimes it's a book in my hand. Um, but I'm forcing myself to read because it's all about what you pour into yourself, right?
Right. Yep.
That's important, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be listening to a podcast, you know, that sharpens you. And that's what my next question is to you. I really want to encourage you guys to name a book and a podcast that something, it doesn't matter what it is, something that you will listen to weekly. For me, I not to promote something outside of whatever, but uh, Elevation Church, Stephen Furtick. I I religiously listen to his messages on Monday because he's a fantastic preacher and he's a topical preacher, and I find a lot of goodness from that blesses me. Now, you may not like Stephen Furtick. He may not be someone that you like. And that's one reason why this intentional man's we have a lot of podcasts that we're developing because we want not everybody has the same interest, but podcasts are something that you can use in today's world to
Yep.
make yourself better because it's just taking a few moments while you're at work, driving in the car, listening to this is to give you some encouragement,
Yep.
right? And then the last thing is write 2 new goals that would help you reach your vision of being an intentional guy. Guys, you have to have goals. You cannot live this life without goals. Let me tell you,
Yep.
I said this over and over again. The reason why it's so important to be intentional is because the enemy is intentional to wanting to take each one of us out. And me and Dwayne, man, we could sit back and tell you all the struggles we've had just since doing this podcast that the enemy is creating to keep us from being able to get out, and that we had to make a hard prayer tonight to Jamie couldn't be available, but we've missed a week. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to be intentional in moving forward with that because this is what God has called us to do. And God, I don't think you have to pray about this. I believe God has called each one of us to be an intentional man,
Yes.
you know, and hopefully today this has encouraged you guys. This has given you some food for thought as you're reading this. We didn't go talk about everything that's in it. You need to read this, watch this video, and then you need to sit down with that small group you're with or that other person. And maybe it's your son, whoever that you're doing this book with, and discuss it. And you need to, over this week, that last one, you need to write 2 goals and make each other accountable to bringing that to the table next week, and so you have that to talk about so that you can be productive.
Yep.
So,
I agree.
well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this week of Intentional Man, and until next time, just keep being intentional.
God bless.